Good morning, everybody. It's Peter here from AJS, and once again, it is my delight to take you into a jeweller's workshop somewhere around Australia. And this week, we're heading over to sunny Geraldton in Western Australia, and it's my pleasure to introduce once again Penny Layton. Welcome, Penny.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
I'm sure they're well. And
we're all recovering from too many hot cross buns and Easter eggs.
Yes, indeed. I know exactly the feeling.
Yeah.
So, Penny, welcome back. And today we're manufacturing some chainmail jewellery.
Correct, yes.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what we're going to get up to today?
Yeah, I got my little cheat notes again. Chainmail has been around for a very long time. It was used as armour in as early as, the Persian Wars and various other wars around the place, the Dark Ages, ancient Middle Ages and Renaissance periods, all sorts of many, many years ago, used as a protection while they were fighting. And then over the years, it's been developed and changed, and now most commonly used in jewellery. And the art of chainmail is just using many jump rings joined together to form, following a pattern to form a piece of jewellery. Today, I'm going to show you how to make the pattern called, I say Byzantine, some people say Byzantine. It's also known as Idiot's Curse. I think maybe because when you look at the pattern, it looks quite confusing, but once you master how to put it together, it comes together quite quickly and quite easily. I find doing chainmail, I don't want to say as a part of meditation, but I do definitely get lost when I'm doing my chainmail. Really easy thing to do, just to sit, open jump rings and then put the pieces together. So the only tools that you need while making chainmail are some pliers and your jump rings, and that's pretty much it. Sometimes I use a little either twisty tie or a tiny piece of wire to just in the first couple of rings when I'm starting. I'll show you that today. Pliers are probably your best to use, either chain nose pliers, and I like something with a really comfortable grip, and with I can't remember what this is called, a box, I think, box joint or something to that effect. Mine are nice and worn in, so I use them lots. They become an extension of your hand. Another product that I do use is called Tool Magic, and it's a rubber coating that you can put onto the pliers so that the pliers don't mar or put marks into your metal. And I just dip the ends of the pliers. I usually do a double dip, so I'll coat them once and then leave them for a couple of hours to dry, and then I'll coat it again. And this stuff just breaks down as you use it, and then that just peels off your pliers. So it's just a way of protecting the metal as you're opening and closing the jump rings.
So that's the Tool Magic, is it?
That's the Tool Magic, yeah.
Right, yeah.
What else? That's all that you need. I use a little card on my bench or table so that my jump rings don't go flying around, just something that, and I can see it on the surface of the table that I'm using. That's pretty much all. I thought also maybe I might demonstrate for those people that want to make their own jump rings. I make far too much chainmail now to make my own jump rings. The pattern that we're doing today is a fairly flexible pattern, as in many different ring sizes to make the pattern come together correctly. For your pattern on any, for any pattern that you use, the inside diameter of the jump ring is crucial, must be the correct size. You can't just pick up any old jump ring and start making any old pattern. You have to make sure that that inside diameter is the correct diameter for the pattern that you're making. Don't stray outside of any instruction that somebody may have given you, or if you've found a pattern online and it says to use a certain gauge wire and a certain inside diameter jump ring, then that's what you must use for the pattern to come together correctly. But having said that, the Byzantine is the most flexible, so there's many different sizes and gauges that you can use, and there's a fancy ratio or calculation that you can do to work out how many rings will fit inside a ring. But there's also plenty of places on our favorite Googling, system to work out exactly what size ring you need for the pattern that you're going to make. So I don't stress too much about the whole calculation side. I leave that up to somebody else. There's loads of other people out there that have already worked it out for me. But if you do want to make your own jump rings, you need to have a mandrel that is that can be a piece of dowel, a piece of steel rod, even knitting needles as well, to wrap the wire around to make your jump rings. So maybe I'll just quickly demonstrate how to make a jump ring first, and then we can get on to making the actual piece. Does that sound okay?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, so I've got over at my vise, I've got some wire already cut and a couple of pieces of, I've got the dowel that I'm going to use, and I've got, I'm actually using out of my dapping set, one of my, the dapping set, I'm going to use that as well. So a good tip is to not cut too much wire. Just, I don't know, I use 40 centimetres. It's just a number that I've plucked out of the air over the years that I use. You want to just pop a tiny little piece of the metal into your vise and your dowel or your mandrel, whatever you're using to wrap the wire around, quite firmly into the vise. You want to pull it quite tightly around the dowel. I'm also using medium wire, so not too hard. I don't want soft because it springs back too much on me, and hard is just too hard to wrap. So I'm winding it quite tightly against each wind around against the wire.
So you've done that before, Penny. It's a work of art.
Yeah. Right, round to the end. I'm going to leave it on my dowel, that one, because it's wood I can cut through. While I'm here, I'll just show you using the metal. Yeah. So the Byzantine that we're going to make today, just to give you an idea, in a much smaller ring than what we'll use today, a 20 gauge wire and an inside diameter of 2.75, so it's quite a small ring. We'll take 600 jump rings to make a 40 centimeter necklace. So you need to think about, do I really want to make, so there, I've made that on the dapping stick. I'm going to take that one off and cut that one that way. What I'll do with that one is I'll push it together tightly so it's nice and firm, and I'll wrap that in tape and then cut it that way. So I'm going to move back over to the bench and show you how to cut the down. So I guess, yeah, you need to weigh up, your time. There are other things that you can use to make jump rings. There's other gadgets out there. There's always a gadget. There's always another tool that you can use. But if you're making lots, maybe source your jump rings rather than make your own jump rings. I like to just trim off the ends a little bit so they don't sticking into my hands. I'm going to slide that up there. Then just using my jeweler's saw, and really important to make sure that you've got some wax on there. There's a little V already cut into my dowel. Because it's wood, it's going to be all right if I cut into it. Holding quite firmly. Just cut through the spiral now that you've just wound onto the dowel or your mandrel. I'm not going to go all the way because I can't cut right down, but once those ones are all cut off. So there I've made some little jump rings. I'll use that in another piece of jewelry, not my chainmail. I just like to, this dowel is a bit oval, and I use it when I'm making another piece of jewelry, another necklace. So I would just continue to cut all the way down. They all just slide off. And like I said, with this one, the bigger one, I would get some tape, masking tape or packing tape. I just do that to make it easier to hold on to hold the spring all together. And I just push that all up there, nice and tight. The tape, hold that nice and tight. Use that. Same thing. This is 1 millimeter thick wire, so a bit tricky. That's why you don't want soft, because it just bounces around too much. It makes it really hard. It keeps getting caught on the little tags that you're making at the end. You get the general idea there. Take all the tape off, all the jump rings are all cut. That one, much bigger ring that I would use in some earrings. Maybe not chainmail, but something else. So that's how you make a jump ring.
That's a pretty efficient process there, Penny.
Yeah, yeah. And it's I just think it's kind of a cool thing to think of a spiral, then cutting it all apart, and that makes little rings. Right, so that's how to make a jump ring. But I buy all my jump rings in. I don't for my chainmail, only for my chainmail. In all my silversmithing, I make all my own jump rings, but in my chainmail, I buy mine in. They use a diamond saw to cut, so the close is really tight. And if I've work hardened, depending upon the pattern, if I've work hardened it enough, I don't solder my chainmail either. So this is the Byzantine pattern that we're going to make today. That one is in 14 karat gold fill, yellow gold.
It's very elegant, isn't it?
Yeah. I wear one as well all the time in the sterling silver. And I should just get you a really small one as well. Let me just show you. So that's in a much smaller gauge, much tinier. So today I'm going to use 16 gauge wire, and the inside diameter is 4.5 millimeters. So as I said before, really important that you have the right size inside diameter and thickness of wire for your pattern to work correctly. This 16 gauge is quite a thicker metal, so I'm going to use my pliers with the tool magic on it so that I don't mar the metal. And it also just gives you a little bit of grip too while you're opening and closing jump rings. And a lot of patterns will ask for X amount of rings open, so many rings closed. The Byzantine, I like to open all my rings except for the first two. Everything else is all open from there on in. So the first thing to do is to open your jump rings. So to open a jump ring, it's really important that you don't change the circle, the integrity of the shape, I guess. So with my pliers, either side, I've got the cut at the top, 12 o'clock, I guess, and my pliers either side, whether you want to call that 9 and 3 or east and west. And then I'm gently going to open the jump ring by pushing one away and pulling one towards me. But I only wanted to open enough for another ring to fit through. So just a little wider. If you open it up too much, you will change the shape of your ring, and we don't want to distort or change the shape of our ring. So as long as it's open just enough for, a jump ring to fit through, then you've opened it enough. So I've already opened a bunch today. So that would be my first protocol, just sit and open jump rings. And like I said, the pliers will become an extension of your hand. Just if you need me to move anything closer or slow anything down, let me know.
No problem. So I'll just take the opportunity to thank Connie for her lovely comments. She's impressed.
Oh, okay.
And if anyone would like to introduce themselves just by saying where they're from, that would be wonderful. Welcome aboard.
So I've just got it's a piece of scrap wire. I do a bit of weaving as well, wrapping, I should say, on some of my jewelry. And so this is like 0.3. It really doesn't matter. You could use a twisty tie that comes out of your plastic bags, you know, the garbage bags that you get with twisty ties. You could use that as well. It's just so that I've got something to hold on to and the beginning doesn't get all caught up while I'm working. So to start with, we need 2 closed jump rings. So closing a jump ring is pretty much the same as opening, but in reverse. So I'm just going to, again, the opening of the jump ring is at the top. My pliers are either side 9 and 3. And I'm just going to, I actually like to go past and then back again until it's closed. You might want to use your finger, run it across the top to see if anything is higher than the other. But if you make that one smooth movement backwards and forwards without pushing up or pushing in, just moving it backwards and forwards, then the 2 ends will finish flush together and still keeping a nice shape to your circle jump ring, even a nice and round. So I'm going to close 2 to start. Then that tiny little piece of wire that I just had floating around, I'm just going to thread them onto the piece of wire. Give it a bit of a twist. Now, I'm going to take one of my open jump rings and feed it through both of those 2 rings. Close that ring. That's in the way. Take another open ring and place it through the same 2 closed rings. Close that ring. So now I've just got 2 and 2. Those 2 that I just placed on, I'm taking another open ring and putting it through the last 2 that I just put on. Close that ring. Take another open ring and place it through the same last 2. Close that ring. So now I have 6 rings on there. Now this is where it gets a little tricky. Those last 2 that I just put on, I'm going to open up, fold back, and hold down. Now I'm going to push those 2 that I just opened up and folded back up inside. I don't know if you can see that. Those 2 rings there.
Yep.
Holding that, I'm going to take another open ring and feed it through the 2 rings that I just folded back and that are pushed up against those rings, and close that ring. Take yet another open ring and place it through the same place that you just put the last ring. So that's through the 2 open rings that you folded back that are pushed up inside. Close that. And that's the very beginning of the, I guess you could call it cluster of the Byzantine. So then you just keep going. So now the last 2 rings that I just put in, I'm going to add another open ring through those. Close it. Another one. Do the same thing again. Those last 2 rings that you just put on, feed another open ring through there. Close it. So now I have the last 2 that went through the open ones that we folded back and 2 more sets of 2. So that's the 6 that we started with again. The last 2 we just put on, fold them back. I'm holding them in my thumb and finger and I'm pushing them up against those 2 rings there. Take another open ring, feed it through those 2 that you just folded back. Close that ring. So there are people that do solder their jump rings, and you can do that. Some of the daintier ones, it may be something that you might want to think about, but man, it's a lot of work to solder all those jump rings.
You're just answering a question from Christy. So thank you for your question, Christy, because she was just asking you that she thought you had to solder each jump ring. But,
yeah, so this particular, the Byzantine, I find one of the strongest ones. I make this one in that smaller, so this ring here that I've got on the bench, I'll just pop it on my finger. That is 20 gauge, 2.75 inside diameter. The one that we're working with is a 16 gauge, 4.5 millimeter inside diameter. So you can see the difference between the 2 rings, quite a big difference. So the bracelet that I've just started making, really, really solid, very firm. I wear mine every day, all day, and I've never had anything go wrong with it. I also use the smaller ring to make anklets, and I know people that wear that one all day, every day, around the ankle. I don't solder those jump rings, and I've never had an anklet come back with an opening or some sort of breakage or anything. Should you get the bracelet caught on something and give it a really hard yank, potentially you might open up a jump ring. But the Byzantine in particular, super, super strong pattern. I've never really had a problem with it at all. The helm or the parallel, which is this pattern here. Now this is 20 gauge, 4.5 inside diameter for the ring, the bigger ring, and then I'm using the smaller ring. This is a far daintier bracelet. I probably wouldn't recommend that you wore this out gardening or something that you could potentially get it caught on something. I don't solder these jump rings either, and I do have to occasionally make repairs on this bracelet. If you wanted to solder those rings, by all means, you could solder them. But like I say, it is a lot of work, and if you're just making bracelets for yourself and family, then I think, and you've got the time to solder them all, then it's a definite reassurance that the bracelet's not going to open up. The Byzantine, super strong. I've never had a problem with it at all. So you would just keep going now, making that pattern. I mean, following exactly what we've just done. 2 on, another 2, fold them back, feed it through. So hopefully that's clear explanation of how to make a Byzantine, or idiot's curse, as it's also known. Do you want me to keep making some more on there, Peter, or would you like? I can choose a different pattern now if you like.
Well, you've established that pattern and people can replay that if they need to look at it. So, no, thank you, Penny. And so if you want to show us another pattern, that'd be great.
Yep.
So how many essential or popular patterns are there in chainmail?
Oh my gosh, it's endless. It is a black hole that once you go into, you spiral and you never stop. There are gazillions. And of course, there are far more cleverer people out there than me that create their own patterns. I don't go that far. and I just have a couple of favourites. The Byzantine is my favourite one. I really like it the most. But there's loads and loads. I think that 4-in-1, the European 4-in-1, is what a lot of the armour was made out of, and that can be a 6-in-1. It can be much wider. It can, and so that's maybe what most people are familiar with when they talk about chainmail. When you're thinking about a whole piece of armour or vest made out of many rings, that would be like a European 4-in-1 pattern. But yeah, there are loads of patterns. All right, so let's have a go. Since I just started talking about the helm, let's have a go at that one. I like to mix the metals as well, so I'll use different colours in the metals. And I use rolled gold or gold fill. So this is another reason why I don't always solder my jump rings as well. To solder gold fill or rolled gold is really quite difficult because the gold's heat laminated to a base metal, and as soon as you overheat that, the gold will pull off or puddle off your base metal. So if you're using solid gold, of course, that would not be a problem, but that would also make quite an expensive bracelet. So this one, having just said the Byzantine, I like to sit and open all my jump rings. I don't have some closed, some open. This particular pattern, I like to have the larger ring, which is, and I'm going to change pliers now. I'm not going to use the one with the tool magic anymore. I'm just going to go back to my regular chain nose pliers with nothing on them. This wire is a lot thinner. I'm not going to run the risk of marring the metal. It's not going to take as much effort to open and close the jump rings. Some unopened jump rings I've got into my open jump ring pile. So I call it the parallel. It's also known as the helm. It probably has other names. Some of the patterns do have a variety of names. So there's a few open ones. So just again to show you this pattern. Can you see that? So yep. It's called helm or parallel. I'm using, this is 20 gauge, 4.5 inside diameter. And the other one that I'm using, this is rolled gold, 14 karat rose gold on there. This is a 20 gauge, 2.75 inside diameter. So I've got... So
Penny, if you wanted to get a recipe for a bracelet,
yep,
you could just Google chainmail bracelets, and they'll give you the sort of things you need to do the...
Absolutely, yeah, totally, yeah. There's quite a lot of places out there that you can Google, and they'll have the pattern listed so that you can follow it. I was also going to show you, if you want to pop a colour in your chainmail, a really great thing to use is anodized aluminium. So here, that's probably not going to work. You can get pink. Anodized aluminium colours never, endless really. Purple, blue, loads of colours. So that's another option as far as just giving your chainmail bracelets just a little bit of difference. All right, so the parallel, I'm using 20 gauge, 4.5 inside diameter, 20 gauge, 2.75 on the inside for the smaller ring. I've opened my silver ones, the larger ring, and I've closed the smaller ring. So I'm going to take one of the opened rings, and for the first one, I'm going to add 4 smaller closed rings onto that opened jump ring and close that. Got to be a little bit more careful with the thinner wire. It's easy to distort that shape, and you really, really want to try and keep it round. We don't want to distort the shape of the jump ring at all. Take another opened larger ring and feed it through all 4 of the closed rings that are already on the first one. Close it up.
So Penny, if you do distort a shape, is it better probably to just remove that jump ring altogether and get another one?
Yes, definitely, because the pattern won't come together properly if the shape is no longer round. You're best to get rid of it and start again. Okay, so now that I've got, I guess that falls apart like that. It's 2 larger rings and 4 smaller ones. Might be easier if I show you sitting down. I've got the 2 silver ones, the larger rings there, and the 2 smaller rings either side. I'm going to take an open larger ring and feed it between the 2 silver, but not through the gold ones or the smaller ring. Close that up. So it's a bit hard to see when I'm first starting out. I'm going to turn that around and take another open ring and feed it through the same place, but the 2 smaller rings on the other side, feed them through that opened ring, close the ring. So now I've got the 2 in the middle are the ones that we started with, and the ones that we've just added on have been fed through those 2 first rings, and the smaller rings are inside the last ring that we just added on. Now I'm going to take an open ring and feed it through the 2 small rings and close that up. Before I close it, sorry, I'm going to add 2 smaller ones. Then I'm going to close it up. I'm going to turn it over and take an open ring and feed it through the same 2 small rings we just fed a larger ring through. Now, though, I'm going to pick up the 2 small rings we just popped on the larger ring. Close that. And so now we have the start point again with 2 of the larger rings and 2 of the smaller either side. Take an open ring, feed it between those 2, making sure the little ones are inside the ring you just fed through. Close that up. So that's the pattern there on its way. And then I would just take another opened larger ring and feed it through the 2 small ones. Continue doing that until you have the length that you require. 2 small ones on top of onto that one we just fed through. Close. Turn it over. A larger ring that's already open through the 2 smaller rings that were already there, through the 2 that we just put on. Close it up. And moving the jump ring backwards and forwards like that, and I'm not going overextending either way. I'm just work hardening that metal, just moving it backwards and forwards. That will work harden it to make sure that it's not too springy and that it's going to stay where we want it to stay. Back and forth. Just once I can hear that little clicking noise, I know that it's nice and tight and close. And like I say, you can just run your finger across the top every now and then just to make sure you are closing it nice and tight. So that's the parallel or helm. So there's a little bit more preparation in that one as far as that you have to open all the larger rings and close all the smaller rings before you can start. But there's always some sort of preparation in the chainmail before you can get going. So I've got one more pattern that I can show you if you like.
Yeah, sure. Just before you do, Penny,
Yeah.
I'd just like to welcome Connie, Anne, Yasmin, Cheryl, Jim, Lynn, Margaret, Christy. They're all watching, so thank you for introducing yourselves.
Oh, hi,
And
guys.
as Christy was indicating, her 12-year-old son's making bracelets out of jump rings, and it really is a good way for anyone to get a start in jewellery making, isn't it? Because it's just a couple of pair of pliers and some jump rings.
Absolutely. Yep.
And then that can just start your journey.
Yep. Very minimal tools in chainmail, which is really great. And, I've making the jump rings I find quite therapeutic as well, just winding and sawing. And that will also help to improve your sawing skills as well, learning to cut jump rings. I just, like I said in the very beginning, don't think that cutting a longer piece of metal is going to save you time, because it's just too hard to hold on to. Just start with a smaller piece and make a small spiral and cut your rings. If that means you have to keep making spirals, maybe you can make a whole bunch of spirals. We need to think smarter so that we're not working so hard. Like, make a whole bunch of spirals, then sit down at your bench and cut them all, rather than making a spiral, cut it, make a spiral, cut it. Right, so the other pattern that I was going to show you is called, again, and it has a couple of different names, called the orbital or barrel. And there are a couple of different versions that you can do of this one as well. Again, I've mixed the metals in this one. And I guess the versions could be that I like to have doubles everywhere. You don't have to have doubles everywhere. You could have just one in joining the clusters instead of the two. But I like to have doubles everywhere. Now, this one also important to make sure that you have that little piece of wire on one end, because say, for instance, you have to put it down to go do something and then pick it back up again. If you pick it up and start feeding through the wrong end, the orbital will be going in the opposite direction. You've got to keep going the one way. You can't change halfway through. So this
Penny,
one
is a benefit of having two colours. Does that then make it a bit easier when you're doing the process?
It can do, make it, yeah, to see
identifying the colours and things like that.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it can, especially say, for instance, if you're first starting out, that might be. And you could use copper, like that's, and the anodized aluminium or aluminium is a much cheaper route than sterling silver. So if you're just starting out, maybe you want to see if this is something that you want to do, and you don't want to leap straight into sterling silver. The aluminium and anodized aluminium is a really affordable way to start making some chainmail jewelry. And because you've got so many colors to choose from, really does, give you endless ideas.
And you really do get bang for your buck, don't you? Because what you produce is really impressive.
Yeah, totally. So that this orbital or barrel, I'm going to use 16 gauge again, but this time the ring's a lot larger. Let's move these ones all out of the way so we don't get them mixed up. So in the Byzantine, it was 4.5. In this one, it is, I also call it spiral, 5.5.
I'll just take the opportunity to invite anyone, if they've got any questions along the way, please ask away in the comments. That'd be great.
Okay, so again, this one, I've opened all the jump rings. There's only a couple that I close, have some closed and some open. Most of them I open all of my jump rings, and I just need to that are open to start. I'm going to change pliers again. This metal's a little thicker and I don't want to leave tool marks on my metal, so I'm going to go back to my pliers with the Tool Magic. If you start your chainmail journey and you discover that it is something that you really, really love and you want to keep doing, my biggest tip is to invest in your pliers. Spend the money in buying some good pliers, something that's ergonomical, something that's really well made, good quality. It'll be a one-time purchase. but it will really, really save wrists and hands, and it will help with precision and both in picking up and control, being able to close properly. That would be my hot tip. Don't be scared to pay the money for a very good quality pair of pliers. These ones I'm using now, made in Germany, and I bought them from AJS. And they're a little wider than the other set that I was using, but I've got really good control with these pliers. So the first two rings, I'm going to use, the majority of this bracelet is sterling silver, and I'm just using 2 yellow gold, rolled gold jump rings for a little pop of colour throughout the bracelet. So if you're using an alternative colour, you want to close those 2 first. And I had another little piece of wire here. Then I'm going to take my little bit of wire and feed those on. Twist it up. Now the open ones, straight through the 2 that I just closed. Another one. Do that again through the silver. Two gold, 4 silver. Now I'm going to push those 2 silver ones up. They're flush against each other. Just push them. Now this is going to probably a little bit tricky to see on the camera, but I'm going to feed it through, turn it, feed it through, close it. Another gold one through the same place. So this is a little bit more complicated than the others that we've already, so if I that I've already shown you. So they've sort of like touching each other, but they're split, and this ring's gone through both. So I'm going to take another gold one and place it through the same place, put it through the same place. Once I get a bit of length to this one, hopefully it'll be a bit easier to see. So now I'm going to take 2 more silver ones. The 2 that, the last 2 silver ones that I just put on, those ones that are sort of together but slid, I'm going to take that silver ring and put it through both of those. Close that. Again, another silver one. Close that. Two more silver through the last 2 silver. Some of the more open patterns will come together much quicker. I think the Byzantine, that 16 gauge, the bigger one that we were making at the very beginning, in an average bracelet length, I think from memory, there's about 150 jump rings in that one. So now I've got, I've put the 2 silver through those little ones that we sort of slid apart. I've added another 2 to the end. Now it's time to put the gold ones on again. So I just slide them apart. They're flush, but they're just apart. And take that gold one. And you might find with this particular pattern, you may need to open the ring just a little more than in previous patterns that I've shown you. So we feed the one ring in, turn the ring up, go through the top silver ring, pull it through. So there's this little twist action.
Yeah, that was very well demonstrated there, Penny. We got that.
Good. Yeah, once they get a bit more length so that I can actually hang on to something. So again, then I need to just take one more of the gold one. So down through there, twist it up, back through, close. And then you would just continue on 2 silvers through the 2 silver ones. So add another 2, then put your gold. So like I was saying, really important that with this particular pattern, having the little tie at the end is not just about having something to hang on to when you first start. It's also that so I can remember which is the beginning and where I'm still building on. So if I had to put this down and go make a coffee or, you know, answer the door or something, then I know that that's where I started. This is where I'm building on to. Because if I pick it up and go start building on down the other end, the orbital or the little cluster will be in the opposite direction. So you could try that. Maybe you might like that in your piece, but it won't have that nice fluid movement, or yeah, you'll have some that are going one way and some that are going the other. This one's a lot more open than the others that we've been looking at today. So that's just 3 that I make quite commonly, or a lot of. And that once you get the rhythm, once you know the pattern, come together quite quickly. And you'll find ways to do things yourself. You may not like to close some and open some, or maybe you do. Maybe you find that it's easier to have some closed. I've shown you the basics, and then now go have a play and see how you can find ways to make it easier for yourself. If you do need any help, then I'm always available for questions after the video as well. If you like, reach out to me. I don't mind at all. I can pass on.
We've got Penny's details in the comments there, so her socials and website. Yeah, Penny, just the one you just showed us, the finished one there.
Yeah.
So you sell these, right?
Yes, yeah.
So, and retail, what would that retail for roughly?
This one I've got 115 on.
Well, it looks beautiful. So, yeah.
So that's, yeah, sterling silver and 14 karat rolled gold, or also known as gold fill. I like using rolled gold or gold fill in my jewelry because it's an affordable way for me to have some gold in my jewelry, and that I can then pass on to the customer. It's not a solid gold jump ring, but it's a different process to plating, so it won't rub off or wear off like plating does. It's a permanent fixture to a base metal. Okay,
yeah. Oh, great tip. Now we'll just reveal you again to the audience, shall we? Here we are. Yeah. So we have enthused a few people out there. So there's a few people out there getting some jump rings and some wire and pliers right now.
Good.
So that's good. And thank you for that little introduction to making your own chainmail jewellery. Now, Penny, we'll look forward to welcoming you back at another time. So until then, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for joining in and watching the video. I hope it was helpful. And please reach out if you have any questions.